Thank you, Bobby. Thank you, everybody. I This is my first time at ADC, and it's such a wonderful time being here. So many people, they all care about similar things like I do. I have so many friends now. I'm I'm so thrilled. And like Bobby said, I had a chance to meet him at ADCX India, but now I think I'll be coming to ADC and meeting all of you, and you should come to ADC India. Um, I am really honored to have given an opportunity to speak a little bit about what I care about, what I get to work on in my corner of the world. And I totally recognize that I'm in a room full of engineers, developers, the ones who are like actually doing the work. So really smart, creative, intelligent people. So I appreciate the chance to speak about it, and any feedback, any advice you have for me, I would love to learn from all of you and hope I can share a little bit. As you can see, maybe you saw it on the program, it's called Foundation Models Don't Understand Me. That's like a complaint. I think many of us have complaints about the world, about AI, about C++. Before I dive deeper and talk about what exactly I'm complaining about, maybe I'll say a little bit about me so that you can maybe understand me a little bit. I'm Manaswi. This is a picture of me when I was 4 years old. It looks exactly like me. That's what my parents say. And I'm a PhD student, as Bobby mentioned, in Opera of the Future, which is a research group at the MIT Media Lab in Boston. And I have been in many universities before, studying music and technology from the perspective of instruments and why instruments are interesting and how I can make music with it. But as you can see, I got addicted to sound and music very early on, thank you to my parents. And on this cassette tape, my parents made many recordings of me when I was 4 years old. And so last year when I went home, I heard all these sounds and I wanted to make a voice model. And voice models are kind of all over right now, and it's very interesting as an opportunity for dubbing, for education, also critical on what the laws around it should be, people getting manipulated or voices getting stolen, misrepresented. So it's chaotic, but I wanted to do something creative. I was like, what if I make a voice model of my 4-year-old voice and make a song out of it? I'm not going to play my entire song, but please come talk to me. I have an album of my 4-year-old voice. But here is a message for all of you from my 4-year-old self.
Hello. Thank you for letting me speak at the ADC.
You can hear actually the microphone quality and everything is in that sound. So I really love it. It really feels like a moment in time. Over the last 15 years, I've played a lot of music. I play a bunch of instruments. I play around with. I'm not very good, but I have played in many ensembles, bands, choirs, a cappella, and I really love making things. And apart from music, I love technology as well, and messing with technology, misusing them. So I love glitch stuff. I'm sure many of you can relate. There's live coding that I get to do in India. Yesterday at the networking event, we had some live code music as well. I love misusing this technology, as I said. So here is like images through different audio effects. So this is what my face looks like with reverb and chorus. And I would do the reverse as well, take images and apply audio effects on them. Or if it's not in the software domain, in the hardware, I was like interested in making music as a sculpture. This was in the pandemic. I was locked indoors. I had like one room and I was like, I want to see sound. I don't know what that means, but let me just make this. So misusing technology is at the core of what I love as well, along with music. And community, as Bobby said, I have been helping organize, instigate, participate in many different communities. Here are some smiling faces. Here's ADC, all smiling faces here, so I'm in the right place. And this is the place that I'm in, Audio Developer Conference, Bristol. But I searched all the music tech conferences going on last month and this month and next month. So in our proximity, these are the conferences going on in music and technology. And you can see there's a lot of AI. Like in December, there's like 3 conferences about AI making music, AI music generation specifically. ISMIR is happening right now, music information retrieval. A lot of AI and generation there as well. I guess if you understand and if you can retrieve information from music, people are interested in what can you create with it. And this is like a blobby self of me. And there's another blob over there, which you can't see. But this is like a Venn diagram overlapping of music tech and community. And that kind of is what I pull together to represent myself. But more recently, I've been kind of feeling these other Venn diagrams pulling me apart. So lot of agents, lot of automation and displacement in writing emails, in I don't know, just generally in life, and also data getting opted in, opted out. I think people figuring out what the right way of letting people use these tools at the same time respecting their consent and choices are. And this is what I was complaining about. Foundation models don't really understand me, and I will dive deeper into it a little bit. But maybe I can ask, how many people here have used AI to make music? Yes. But did you like it? If you raise your hand if you liked it. Oh, yes. Yeah. So I think there was some really amazing sessions today about machine learning. All from the perspective of hardware, software, what a model, what an input and output is. So I don't have to explain that to you. But I relate to what you're saying. I use these to make music as well. Sometimes it's fun. Sometimes I'm not really sure how much creating I am doing. But what inspires me, I said this in the beginning, is musical instruments. So the subtext here is lessons from AI Luthri for live performances. So I'm building instruments, and I'm thinking about what is interesting about instruments. And they're kind of like an input-output device as well, a human-computer interaction device, if you will. But and we have always made musical instruments out of every technology that we've had. So I'm sure you recognize all these instruments, but I love looking at it in this order, from bone flutes to brass to metal, wood, electronics, radio waves, touchscreens, apps. And it's obvious to me that I can kind of project this onto what is the musical instruments going to look like, and you all know it because you're building these plugins, beyond plugins, and the vision that I think we have all had as we have been trying to make music like this is something like this, like we can do so many things. And that's like an image I imagined of myself. But here are other imaginations that people have had. This is Herbie Hancock, one of his like album covers, and he's imagining himself as in this rocket ship piloting his way. And Xenakis has this quote about how the composer can become like a sort of pilot, press buttons, move around in the sound of possibilities and make music. So the dream has been dreamt many, many times. But as many of you are familiar, the most commercial tools look like this. More popular, if you just go down the street and tell somebody AI music, this is what they think. A box that you can press a button. It asks you how it may help you. Maybe you want to make in the style of an artist. Funnily, like if you type in artist name in any of these big foundation models, it'll replace it. Artist replaced by these text. Kind of ironic, don't you think? Like, these are the words that define him? Oh, I don't know. But this generative art field is pretty old. Before the beginning of computers, even with textiles and stitching, people have been thinking about algorithms and repetitive, ordered organization of images, of thread, of sound. And Max Bense, in like one of the first computer art exhibitions in 1965, imagined it like this. This is how he defined the goal of generative art: to accelerate the abilities to produce deviations from the norm. But as we can see, because the accelerated adoption of AI is kind of like a acceleration to the statistically average. It leads to like a flattening of the aesthetic. Everybody's pulling from the same probability distributions, the same foundation models being floated around, and you don't have too many ways to make new things from it. Which means all the art kind of looks similar, not all, but generally that's the trend in which things are headed. That's where the funding is headed. So that means more such tools are going to be built. I'm not exactly sure what the goal might be. There is, of course, different reasons why music exists. I'm interested in instruments and performing music, but there's so many kinds of music that's just present in the background, in your road trips, in your exercise machines. So maybe there is a formula to crack there. So these are some of my observations. And I also see that if it is so easy to make music, like you press a button and it makes like 100 songs, then surely the value of what an artist brings or what the instrument can provide shifts away from that button. I mean, I don't think anybody here wants to keep pressing this button, right? And so the value might shift to other places. And what I will do is go through like a case study of a few different kinds of instruments and ways I've approached it. And I've seen similar things out there. So maybe you can share your learnings as well. But in 2019, 2020, just as the pandemic was happening, we were all locked inside. We wanted to make so much music. There were no concerts happening, I guess only on streaming. But I really wanted to be in music. And the first interesting thing about these models was voice. And I'm sure you relate to the fact that text hardly represents the musical idea. You can say a happy song or a rock song, but I'm sure everybody here is thinking of a different happy song. I don't know. Unless you're all like thinking of the same happy ADC song. But because it's different in our heads, most musical ideas are more abstract, like "Ba-do, ba-do, ba-do." That's how I think of like an idea. Maybe I start there, but maybe you think of a reference. And so just to play some examples, at that point, I was interested in starting from a vocal idea. Like, let's listen to this one. And at that time, we had Jukebox, DDSP, some things coming out in 2020 that allowed you to go from audio to audio. So you could make many small instrument models and get things like the saxophone and violin, which were open source. I made some voice models as well. As you can tell, I am obsessed with voice. So we all know this is possible. The voice can get converted into single instruments, drums. Kind of following that. And most of all, what I was interested in is making the kind of music that I like listening to, which is Indian music. And many of these models, there's not enough data or they're not trained on like Indian music. So some of these things I was using was like Jukebox, which cannot make any Indian music. And diffusion models were getting popular. There were a few ways of doing diffusion. So if you're familiar, diffusion models making images or making snapshot of information by diffusing from noise to some statistical property. But you can diffuse with images of spectrograms is what I realized. And there were some people doing it, a few different open source projects. And so I kind of use that to make a bunch of Indian music. So I start with an audio example, just like you heard. And this is the audio example I started with. That's like an Indian rhythm. That's me beatboxing. That's not the real instrument, believe me. But here's what happens if you take the spectrogram of that sound and then diffuse the spectrogram towards like drum spectrograms. So this is what the sound can become. Okay, pretty interesting. Because it's the spectrogram, which is trained on just images, it does not know anything about harmonic structure. It's not capturing anything about sound. So it sounds like this weird kind of harmonic drum sound. Maybe interesting. I'm looking for interesting new sounds. But what I was exploring was, what if you start with one seed of an idea and grow your tree of possibilities outwards, and just understanding what that might lead to. We then got to try it out in a concert with jazz improvisers from New York. So here's an example of some musicians. You can kind of see it, I guess. And they're going to play music and get similar kind of audio-to-audio response. At that time, things are still lagging because the latency for processing something like this takes like about 500 milliseconds still, which, as you know, is huge for musicians. Like you cannot play and talk and make music like that. But we figured out call and response as a paradigm has been done many times before, especially to deal with the latency issue. And I wasn't worried too much about what the models can't do, but what I could learn from the musicians using it. What were their intuitions? What did they find interesting or not? And I'll play just a tiny clip of it. So you hear the musician and then you hear the voice models singing along. Pretty scary sounding. The model's not that great. As you can tell, the model is like an acoustic model, so it is not trained like a transformer. It doesn't have a knowledge of symbols and why certain symbols come after certain symbols, but it's making this texture of the voice. You can see she's kind of laughing. I got some great feedback from everybody. We spent one-on-one time hours because the musicians loved it. They are used to playing the notes on the score, but they haven't gotten access to play with things like this, not in 2022, maybe hopefully more and more now. And they had amazing ideas about how they might move the model or control the model. And I'll share a little bit more about what that brought us to. Another kind of way of controlling the model, gesture, the theremin. Embodiment is a big part of musical instruments, as I'm sure all of you are aware. And here's an example of me using my voice again, and this kind of theremin. I was inspired by the theremin, and this is like a photo frame, so I'm kind of reaching into the photo frame and moving my hand around. And me moving the hand around kind of samples from different points in the latent space. Just to experiment. So that's the sound that's coming out. Okay, sounds interesting. What I want to draw attention to is, all I'm doing is like moving my hand up and down, which is like a 2D axis. So you could have a pad, you could have numbers, you could have two knobs. But all of these things, as I'm sure you're aware, are very, very different for the performer, because there's a speed at which you can move your hand. There's a different speed at which you can move a knob. There's gestures that you end up doing, like your hand moves a certain direction more often. So you end up building a vocabulary when you tie in certain embodied behaviors to these 1 or 2 or 3 or 100 knobs. And what we ended up doing with the gesture is taking it and building an opera around it. So this was from the opera Valis, which is, how many of you know what Valis is? Some of you. Yeah, it's Philip K. Dick's, like one of his last novels, science fiction. Valis actually stands for Vast Active Living Intelligent System. So he was thinking about this in like the 70s. And our professor, Todd Mackover, built this opera around it. Todd Mackover is the composer working on operas. So I get to test out whatever I'm building, these AI tools, in an opera directly. And so let me play this clip, and I'll speak over it to tell you what is going on. So you can, let me make this big, then maybe you can see better. So you see this person, and this is a stage. There's a bunch of lights, cameras. There are other people and musicians on stage. And she kind of walks in with this object in her hand, and she moves it around. And this has an IMU sensor in it, so it has 3 dimensions of position, acceleration, tilt, so 9 dimensions coming directly from the movement. And here's like the sounds that we are producing, all synthesized in real time at the show. You can kind of tell moving it around is triggering these samples. Where did these samples come from? So the opera was made for the first time in the 80s. So we had the recordings from there. So we used the previous methods of audio to go from like 5 minutes from the original recording to 2 hours of audio material, just audio to audio variations. And then built this autoencoder that you can move around in these 9 dimensions. But we realize, as I'm sure you have realized, if you have played any gesture instrument, it's so hard. You have nothing to go around. And the theremin is how many people here play theremin? Whoa, maybe I can learn from you how to like move my hand in front of nothingness. But I'm sure it takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of practice, and you have to build a muscle memory and some kind of references. Also, when you don't know, I think in the theremin, you know exactly what the sound's going to be. And when you move your hand back, you have the tight feedback loop between what's going to happen in the sound. Here, you're moving around in space. The sounds are continuous because the space that you're sampling in is continuous, and it's a gesture, so you can't go directly from this point to this point or this angle directly. You have to get there. It is continuous, but it's not very predictable. The sounds were not exactly sure what it is. So what we figured out is to do a balance for an actual live performance, you need exploration and like exploiting some ideas that you liked. So within the latent space, what we did was every time you find an area or a sound that you like, you touch the sides of this jar and it saves that point in space. So it saves that point, it saves that gesture. You can go back to the parameter space, or you can save like a loop of audio to go through. And that way we managed like a a performance where she can pull those sounds back. And because it was all generated from this model, it was different every night. Some nights it was great, some night it was like, well, nothing's happening. Oh, all the sounds are over here. But if you work with the same model, you work with the same gestures, even within the unpredictability, the more time you spend with it, you're able to build a vocabulary. And as a musician, you want that vocabulary, and then you want time to practice with that vocabulary. So I was just in full screen mode, so I'll just go back. Okay, that's fine. So, all right. So, okay, here's like a tabular column representing what I just said, the 9 dimensions, the saving of the thing through capacitive touch on the outside. Then what we do, another thing that we tried more recently is querying the model by articulation. And what I mean by that is like, over here you see an ensemble of musicians. They are the Sejong soloists, international musicians. This is a performance that we got to do in the Seoul Arts Center. And these musicians are incredibly good. They can play all kinds of extended techniques on their violin and cello. And what they're doing is, well, maybe I should play some audio and then maybe you can tell. So this piece was for the Flow Symphony, which was premiered in August of this year. And as it's called Flow, it was built on a model of water sounds. So we went out collecting river sounds, water sounds. We made about like 1.5, 2 hours of recordings and then built a model that is like a audio to audio, but now with this curated data set that is just water sounds, and allowed these musicians to kind of move around in that space. So let me play some audio, and you're gonna hear, it's like a 20-minute piece that goes through a bunch of different composition ideas, but this is a moment that I wanna share, which is this back and forth, this improvisation section. Like before, you heard the call and response that we did 2 years ago. Let's see what this is like. So you're going to hear water sounds that are synthesized in response to what the musicians are doing on stage. I have microphones coming from every musician. Still hard to tell what's really happening, but you hear the water. That's the cello. Oh, you get the idea. Look at it. He's really enjoying it. Look at that face, it's so intense. Oh, he's so proud. He's so happy. Look at that. Sorry, these are just empirical observations. I did talk to them, and I have like a lot of analysis, because what they really enjoyed was this tight coupling between their instrument, and I called this query by articulation, because the way they're able to control it is not necessarily, it is through audio, but it is through their instrument. So the way they change their bow a little bit changes the noise that is produced, and therefore they're really trying to get at a certain kind of sound through this rich control with their hands and their instruments that they've built. And we're trying right now, if they can play it and not hear the violin and just hear the river, what would it be like if they're controlling just the river with their instrument? Again, the latency is getting lower and lower. Soon we can work with percussionists. I think that'll be even more interesting, where you play a sound and instantly hear something and control exactly where the sounds you draw from are or not. So, I did want to mention that one way of getting to the ideas that we want is gesture and audio. Another is curating the data sets, so making small models that you know where the data comes from and using it creatively. I'm sure you all got that. We did similar things in museums where museums have archives, so you can build like a model around that archive. This specific thing that we did was for the Andes, like Andean moche culture. They have all of these old instruments that are sitting in museums that have never been played, these whistle flutes. And so we collaborated with the museum in Stuttgart to take these instruments and kind of, we're not allowed to touch them because they're so old. So blow air into them from far through pipes, a whole ordeal to kind of get to what this might have sounded like. And then once we got a collection of these in controlled environments, we wanted other people to experience what this instrument was. And so we built an AI model with same kind of things, these audio to audio, some rave, some diffusion models, and let people play with it over a month and collect more data from it. So thinking about this curated data sets as a way of keeping a culture alive or keeping like a specific data set, making it interactive. Maybe that's an instrument, not sure. And then an architectural scale instrument. So we built this textile pavilion. I don't know if you can tell how big it is. It's not as big as those mountains, but if you can see some people, I think maybe you can tell how big it is. This was at Burning Man, and each of these, the textiles, the petals that you see, they have capacitive sensing in them. So there's conductive thread going through them. So it's like a giant Thermion axis, you can say. And there's 12 of them. So there's 12 dimensions to capacitive sensing. And when someone walks underneath it, you can exactly draw a map of where they are. So if there's a group of people, you can measure density, how they're moving, how fast they're moving, thinking about sensors at an architectural scale. And how can people perform this instrument? Well, mostly they just walked around and they were trying to get a sense, just like our expert musicians, of what is happening, what is the feedback loop between input and output. And you end up getting these cooperative behaviors where people realize that when they're all like touching each other or when they're all towards the center, something happens. When they move to the side, something else happens. A way of them discovering what the modeling is. I do have a clip. Maybe it's good to play that for scale, but you had to be there at Burning Man. It's too dark, I think. Anyway, I have many clips and I can talk about specific ideas. So just to recap, like I presented a bunch of cases of using different inputs, different datas, and these smart instruments are not so smart. And we don't want them to be too smart too. We want to leverage the expert techniques that humans are building. I think the button pressing gets to a certain kind of music, but if you want to build a musical instrument, you have to leverage or allow people to make a connection between their musical instruments because unlike human-computer interaction and new interfaces for music like NIME, HCI's goals are slightly different from NIME's goals. You don't want to make the music happen very efficiently and easily. You want it to be difficult, sufficiently difficult that you can learn it and become good at it and have a personal relationship with that instrument. Also, another idea, in all of these things, we were trying to make the model go away from the statistically average, from the center. And we want to move it towards this serendipity, but with some direction. And we came up with the different strategies for it. I'm sure as you're building these plugins, so many people are working with AI already and already thinking about how to give somebody control over moving away from the statistical average. But I think making mistakes is not baked into the foundation models. So all of the funding going into training these foundation models and allowing them to get better at finding what song is happy song for you is not really hitting the right goal, I think. And there are different ways in which we can engage, maybe make the foundation models. I don't know, maybe some of you are building these. So you can, I'm sure you're thinking about what does it mean to personalize it, but I want the control. I change. So just to present this as a case study, I am thinking about many of these foundation models as a radio, where I'm not the one making the music, but who is making the music? There are many things to think about there, which I'm sure we can have a lot of discussion over beers after. But I want to show you an example of the state of the art, the things that you can do with this. So we built installations, letting people actually use these foundation models, because on one end, experts get to make music, but when like just somebody makes a song and they feel so happy and proud, it is they're doing something, which is creating, making music. We just need new verbs and new words to describe the joy that they're having from making things or engaging in this this kind of idea. So I actually have this. Let's see, do I have it? Maybe not. I have like an album of these kind of things. Well, I'll show you. I have an album of AI-made music. But we let people like hum melodies, take a phone and like hum a melody, and then we make music in many different genres that they can flip through with their with the knobs. And what's very interesting is what knobs do people care about. And we are interested in the way they use the knobs, the action. I have already kind of made this clear, this difference that I am making between music as the object to distribute, to transact, and then the action, which is making music. You're all familiar. But this analogy helps me, which is like this mountain, the ski mountain, which is maybe this foundation model is kind of like a ski mountain, the same probability distribution everybody's drawing from. Gets updated once in a while, but it's there. And then exploring it is kind of like going around the ski routes. And as developers or as like tool builders, I'm thinking of myself as making tools for helping this person hike or ski in this mountain. So put their flags, mark their territories, allow them to stop at a place or zoom in or zoom out and many such things. This analogy helps me understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. And of course, there's so many discussions about who made the music and how to track it, how to distribute credit, which is not a solved problem. But I think the only thing I want to say is it needs technological innovations for protecting individual artists, the tool builders, the models. As we come up with creative solutions of how to distribute the pie, of course, some people have access to cutting the cake before other people do, and we need everybody at the table to kind of pull it in different directions. But we do need ways to fingerprint, watermark, and there were so many ideas already been talked about today. These Luddite, Neo-Luddite ideas of protecting, giving like a watermark stamp or a fingerprint to an individual so they can protect their voice, they can protect their sounds and images. There's so much great work being done here. I have participated in a bunch of discussions in the US Copyright Office for Copyright Society, for certain acts that are coming out for preventing deep fakes. It's not a solved problem, and I think many, many more people are needed in here. I think I'm preaching here, like you all know it. The most important thing that I want to say is trust, and that's kind of like what everybody's feeling frustrated about. That's what I'm complaining about. I don't know where this came from. I don't know what might come out of it. And building back this trust, I think, is super important. The trust between a tool builder and their customers. So you might want to do certain things with watermarking, fingerprinting, just for to build the trust with the customer, not for following the law, which hasn't arrived yet, but always trails behind. And also the trust between musician and instrument, and or artist and audience. So all kinds of trust that we want to be building back. And I think I would think about that as I'm building my tools, on what kind of trust am I building when I'm building this. I get to engage, as I said, in these different scenarios, ADCX India, Music Hack Day, at the Media Lab. We're doing this workshop at ICAST this year, if any of you are there, to kind of talk about these low resource ideas, both for generation and for modeling, and also for coming up with the laws around how to disseminate, how to let people play, misuse, complain about foundation models. And I think we can have a great discussion about it. I do want to play some things that inspire me, make some sounds, because like I said through the entire presentation, I love playing music and making these sounds. And how can we talk about music without playing music? You all know there's been so much music here. This is a clip. How many of you have seen this already? You know this documentary? So good, right? And there are many things to disagree now because times have changed, society's changed. But here is Quincy Jones, rest in peace, and Herbie Hancock talking about synthesizers.
Right. It's interesting because, these instruments were designed for people to use, Right. It's just a tool, another tool. The way an axe is a tool, an axe can be a tool to cut wood to build a house, or can be a tool to slaughter your neighbor, The same thing, a synthesizer can be a tool to really hurt people's ears or interfere with their lives, or it can be a tool to make a really nice sounding instrument that can really affect people in a positive way. And it all depends on the person that's using them. People blame machines very often for the machine's fault. How can it be the machine's fault? We have to plug it in. The machine doesn't do anything but sit there until we plug it in. It doesn't plug itself in. It doesn't program itself yet.
It's on the way, though.
It's on the way.
That laugh. I wonder what they'd say now. I mean, I want to use that laugh in a sample then. It's going to be so good. There's many things worth learning from this, thinking about how they were thinking about it. Also, things have changed. What machines mean, what thinking means. These words are getting pulled into many different directions. So we have to focus on the core values of why we create and what brings us joy. And so what brings me joy is making the music. So what I'm going to do is play a little bit of sounds where I misuse foundation models just to do like a demo, and maybe you can think of questions or complaints, and then if we have time, we talk about it or discuss it later. So I have like a max patch here and a few other things. Let's see what I can do. All of the sounds that you'll be hearing will come from my voice, different small foundation models, rave models, some diffusion, and some lyrics condition models as well that are massive. You'll be able to tell. We can talk about it after. Can I turn this off?
Hello.
Thank you. Thank you.